Holy crap. You know, this happened again. I I've been sitting here talking for 30 minutes answering the few questions that are up on the stream, and I never clicked this stupid go live button. So there's probably a lot of people came in and left. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's like it's been going on for 25 minutes and not a peep. Unbelievable. All right, so uh no sound. Really no sound? All my meters show their sound. Let me see. On for 25 minutes and not a Okay. Is there sound? Is there sound now? I hope. Okay, good, good. God, I'm so sorry everyone if you've been waiting around this long time, or maybe you left and you're not here now to hear me say sorry. I'm so sorry if you catch maybe the replay. I forgot to hit the live stream button, but okay, let me go back and answer a couple quick questions. Yeah, that sound, I'm using that Fifine mic that I reviewed, in my other video. But let me talk about, let me answer that quick question about the M5 Mark III and using the 12 to 100 on it. I would say it's a little tight because I was watching the video from DP Review with Jordan and Chris, and he was saying that his fingers were a little tight in between the grip and the lens. And I think he had the 12 to 100 on there. And that may or may not be the case for everyone, but if you have a little bit larger hands, that's going to be a problem. And also the weight of that lens, I think it'll be okay because it's only a little heavier than my 12 to 40 Pro. And when I put that on my EM10 Mark II, it's a little bulky, but it's okay. You can get by with it. So I'd say 50-50. Like half the people will probably say no, this is too heavy for this camera, and the other half will say no, it's just fine. And I know that's kind of a lame answer, but it really depends. For me personally, I would think that lens is a little bit too heavy on the M5 Mark III, but the M5 Mark III does have a little deeper grip, so you might be okay. You might be okay with it. And then let's see. Yeah, now people are sticking around, right? I was like, why is nobody on watching my live stream? And that's because it was not going. Now, and then someone else said, I think it was Jack suggested, get the grip for the M5 Mark III. And these are my thoughts on that, really. The M5 Mark III really is best with the smaller, lighter primes and lenses. And if you're shooting with the heavier lenses, like 20% of the time, I would get the grip. So 80% of the time you're shooting with the smaller, lighter lenses, but time to time you want to take out a heavier lens, then get the grip for the M5 Mark III. If you're shooting with the heavier lenses all the time, if you got all pro lenses, you're better off with the EM1 Mark II if you don't have it already. And if you already have an EM1 Mark II, I don't see a reason to get the M5 Mark III unless you just want a smaller, lighter camera, time to time, and money's no object, right? But yeah, Old's asking getting a discounted EM1 Mark II because it's like $12.99 on the Olympus website for a refurb. And I mean, feature for feature, I don't think there's any reason to pick one camera over the other. So you have to really think about is the smaller, lighter camera more for you or not? Like I said, if you're using heavier lenses all the time, yeah, the EM1 Mark II. For me, if I didn't already have the M1 Mark II, I would definitely buy the EM1 Mark III over the M1 Mark II because of the smaller size and weight. And that's because I vlog a lot and I like to be as compact and light as possible. I try to miniaturize everything that I do as much as I can because those days of shooting heavy gear are behind me, I hope. But yeah, technically there's no reason in terms of features. I don't think there's any reason to get the EM5 Mark III over an EM1 Mark II. There are a couple of differences that you need to consider though, that are tangible, right? The EM1 Mark II definitely has the better battery life by far. I mean, you'll get easily twice as much life out of that battery as the EM5 Mark III. That could be critical, right? For me, I just carry extra batteries, but I always go through two, three batteries on a photo walk with my, you know, EM10 on the longer days. Whereas my EM1 Mark II, I bring a spare battery, but it's not often I have to swap it. Usually that thing will last me most of the day, no problem. And of course, your mileage will vary, but I'm just saying for me, I'm getting really about double the life. The other thing is, if you do a lot of sports action type photography, the EM1 Mark II has a larger pro capture buffer. I think it'll do 60 shots ahead of the 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 actual image versus 30 shots. So those to me are really the only major differences other than the grip. So give that some thought. If you do a lot of sports action, EM1 Mark II. If you use heavier lenses, again, EM1 Mark II. If all you need is a smaller camera, that does everything, and that's what I always go for, and that's why I bought the EM10 Mark II over my D750, uh, is for that smaller camera. All right, let's see. Is that buffer variable? Yeah, the Pro Capture buffer. Yeah, you can set it to be less. Um, oh, the viewfinder on the EM1 Mark II versus the Mark. I'm sorry, EM5 Mark III. My God, they really got to rename their cameras. Um, I was very particular about the viewfinder on the EM5 Mark III when I went to the live event or launch event and looked at it. And on paper, it's I think 10% larger than the EM10 Mark II, uh, and a little bit smaller than the EM1 Mark II. And now it's an OLED display, so it's very contrasty, very beautiful. And when I was looking through the viewfinder and compared it against my EM10 Mark II, and they had an EM1 Mark II there too, so I looked at all three viewfinders while I was there. And the M5 Mark III viewfinder is definitely a little bigger. It feels about 10% bigger. I think, when I was just swapping between the two cameras, between the EM10 and EM5, I didn't notice the difference right away, but after a few times, I was able to tell, yeah, this is definitely a little better and a little bigger. Because it wasn't obvious to me at first how much the difference was. I could see it, but I couldn't tell. But then after I, fumbled with it for a while, I was able to tell that, yes, definitely about 10% larger and feels crisper for some reason. Compared against the M1 Mark II, the M1 Mark II viewfinder is a little bit flat looking because it's just an LCD. And that was, I mean, it's good enough, for most things. But that, you don't really lose anything by having a flatter viewfinder in terms of contrast. But it definitely affects the user experience, in my opinion. When you look through a viewfinder, you want to see a nice, bright, crisp image. And the M1 Mark II is just not that compared to an OLED type viewfinder. But that said, the viewfinder is on the M1 Mark II is designed for sports action, so it has 120 frame per second refresh rate, so it's very fast. So there's no lag in the viewfinder. And like I said, if you're a sports action person, that's going to be more important than being able to have a crisper display. So that's what I would say about the viewfinder is it's okay in the Mark EM1, but the M5 III is a little nicer because of the OLED. But if sports action, it's probably better to get the M1 Mark II. Do you think they'll update the Mark III with the The EM10 Mark III, so they would have to come out with an EM10 Mark IV, right? I don't know. That's going to be tough. I think it's going to depend on the market, because right now the only other competitor is Panasonic, and they're all contrast detect. So I don't think, I mean, to keep the price point to where it is, or a perceived price point, they're not going to put in phase detect in the EM10 models anytime soon, in my opinion. If they do, that would be great. That would definitely take it a step out of all the other cameras at that price point. But then it's going to seriously step on the toes of the EM5 Mark III, and I just don't see Olympus doing it for that reason, unless they want to charge more for the M10 Mark III or Mark IV. If the M10 Mark IV comes out and it's say $200 or $300 more than the current version, then yeah, they'll put phase detect in it, because it's still cheaper than the M5 Mark III, but it's they're going to hold something back. It's not going to have pro capture or something else that, and it's not going to have weather sealing. So there's going to be something that they're going to hold back, but so it's possible, but they're going to have to raise the price if they do that. Still working with the M1, mostly shoot sports. How much improved is the AF in the 3 versus the 2? So if you're talking about the EM1 Mark II versus the EM5 Mark III, there's no difference, and I would go with the EM1 Mark II, or stick with that if that's what you have. Now, if you're talking about the EM1 Mark I, the original version, it's a huge difference. Definitely upgrade to the EM5 or EM1 Mark II, no question. Okay, another question I got was about getting a 12 millimeter f2. That's a tough call. I bought that lens because it's small and light, not because it's a 12 millimeter f2. Well, yeah, that too, but it's mainly because it's perfect for vlogging, right? Like the last couple of videos I did were with the 12 millimeter f2, and that's a perfect size for creative photography. That's that's a tough call. I would think the 12 to 40 Pro might be a better choice, or I would say even the 8 millimeter fisheye lens would be a much more interesting choice if you want to get creative. Even the 9 to 18 millimeter f4, that would be probably a little more suitable lens, because the 12 millimeter f2 is a very specific lens. So like any prime, you buy those lenses for very specific intent. Creative photography, and for me, would be, you need to be very flexible, right? And a prime lens is just that. It's for a very specific purpose. So if you have a creative idea that requires specifically 12 millimeter, then definitely get it. It's fast and it's tack sharp. I mean, that is one of the sharpest lenses I've ever used, even wide open. So if that focal length suits your creative needs, definitely get it. Yeah, the Mark III's price did increase, but I only think about $100 or so. It wasn't like a dramatic increase. It was more of a, progression. Um, but they'd have to increase it quite a bit, I think, if they're going to add in phase detect and a TruePic 8 processor. Well, they have the TruePic 8. That's probably part of the price increase, but yeah. If they're going to add in the 20 megapixel sensor and phase detect, then they have to throw in a bunch of other stuff. I'm a Lumix shooter and just got the M10 refurb kit lens. The 12 to 60 and PL25 are too large and heavy for the 10. What small pancake? Wow, the 12, yeah, Panasonic, if you only do photography, the Panasonic 12 to 35 is pretty awesome. I've handled that lens. I don't own it, but I've handled it in the store, and I think that's a great lens. The 12 to 35 2.8. That's an amazing lens. I would get that for photography over the 12 to 40 Pro. Uh, because I think it stays in the spirit of Micro Four Thirds more so than the Pro lenses, and the M10's not weather sealed anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. Um, Hi Rob, assuming they will update EM53 firmware for some time, do you think it's reasonable to expect similar update on EM1.2 after all the... Yeah, I can't imagine that they would update the EM5 Mark III with something very new or unique from the EM1 Mark II because they're virtually the same camera. And the M1 Mark II is their flagship, right? So that better get all of the updates that an EM5 Mark III does. Uh, you know, the I had a thought. Now I can't remember. But yeah, they're always going to update the EM1 Mark II uh, in addition to EM5, in my opinion. Uh, Thanks. That took care of that. Okay, Mike. I don't know. Oh yeah, you did ask that question earlier. Okay, good, good. I'm glad that that answered your question. Um, I think it's something technical that keeps Olympus for offering a 10 millimeter, 8 millimeter prime. Not really. It's just not a. It's just kind of a weird focal length, right? At least the 10 millimeter is, because they offer the 12 millimeter f2, which is pretty close. Um, it seems like they're trying to follow the same track as the most common lenses in terms of focal lengths, right? They have a 12, a 17, a 25, a 45. Then they have the zooms, the 918. So it seems like their path is very similar to the most popular focal lengths on full frame. And 20 millimeter is not that popular, I don't think. I have a 20 millimeter for my Nikon. I used it only about a month, and then I switched to Micro Four Thirds. But yeah, I don't think there's any technical reason. It's probably just a marketing thing. Like if they offer a 10 millimeter or an 8 millimeter, who would buy it? They really should offer like something like Laowa does, 7 millimeter prime or 8 millimeter prime, like at f2. That way it'll have autofocus and whatnot. Because right now everybody's buying the Laowa 7.5 rectilinear. There is the 8 millimeter fisheye Pro that has the fisheye correction on the M1, but that lens is so expensive. Ain't nobody buying that for the 8 millimeters. You really have to have a reason to buy that lens and spend $1,000. I mean, I do, fortunately, for my business, but uh, the average person not going to buy that. Um, yeah, old saying the 7.5 Lao. Everybody's buying that lens over the 8 millimeter fisheye or the 7 to 14 millimeter zoom that they have. My God, 1,000, 1,100 bucks. Come on, nobody's going to spend that kind of money. I'm new to having public Instagram account. What have you noticed with hashtags and style of photography that attract likes and follows? Rob, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't really use hashtags at all. Uh, I have a few videos keyed up that I'm gonna watch later that are related to Instagram and uh, growing that naturally, organically. But yeah, I can't give you any advice on growing an Instagram account or what would attract people. The common advice that I've seen is to have a theme to your page. If you're going to shoot a certain style of photography, like if you're doing only street photography, and then if you do street photography, you only shoot at night. I mean, there's a lot of tips out there. But yeah, I'm sorry, I can't offer any advice. My Instagram page is primarily just whatever tutorial or technique I'm working on, so it's kind of all over the place. And I never use hashtags. I might have a couple on there with hashtags, but that might be like one or two shots out of the 100 that I have. Uh, how much better is the M5 Mark III from the M5 Mark II, specifically the front two wheels on the view and the viewfinder? Okay, the front two wheels are fine. I mean, I know Peter Forsgaard was having a problem with the back wheel being kind of recessed a little bit more. I didn't have that problem when I used it. Uh, the wheels seem fine. They're very similar to the M10 Mark II, and the viewfinder. I did compare it very closely against my EM10 Mark II and the EM1 Mark II that they had there, and it's kind of in between. It's definitely feels 10% larger and is very comfortable to the eye. Like I didn't really, that eye relief thing they talked about. That's valid. That's legit. And it was definitely a little larger than the M10 Mark II. I didn't figure it out at first, but after swapping back and forth, I said, okay, there it is. This is definitely larger and very clear, and that OLED display is awesome. The the M1 Mark II display is just a little bit flatter because it's an LCD. There's not as much contrast there, but it has a faster refresh rate. So if you're doing sports and action, that's the better choice. But the EM5 Mark II's viewfinder is very similar to the EM1 Mark II, if not exactly the same. I really couldn't tell much difference. So the refresh rate is faster on the EM1 Mark II, but there's not as much contrast. So the viewer experience of looking through the viewfinder, I think, is aesthetically not as pleasing as the EM5 Mark III. Oh, hey Jan, you got a new camera? Was it the M5 Mark III? I'm assuming it is. And yeah, thanks. I try to do live videos. When I was talking to my by myself when the video started, if you just came in, I talked for about 30 minutes and forgot to push the live stream button. But yeah, that I like I said, I just want to try to be available whenever I can, because sometimes it's just easier to ask the question directly, and I can answer a little better than I can, say, responding to a question in the comments. Because sometimes, in the comments section, it can get awkward, and it's just easier because I have the software here, like Workspace. I have the cameras here. I can just show you exactly how to do things. Is the John asks, is the Ollie 7 to 14 worth buying if I find it good for video? That's a heavy lens. If you're on a tripod and you want to do streams like I'm using the 25 millimeter right now. Um, I don't know. If for vlogging, it's a little bit too heavy. I would just use a 12 millimeter f2. If you watch the last two videos I did, episodes 212 and 213, where I'm talking about video, I was using a 12 millimeter f2. I think that's a better choice for vlogging. For general video work, I think, if you're going to get a heavy lens, the 12 to 40 Pro is a better choice. Because 7 to 14 is just a little bit too wide for general photography. That's more of a landscape, type architectural lens than it is really for video, in my opinion. Oh, is the audio a little bit soft? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's because I kind of lean back when I'm talking. I'll move this mic a little closer. Okay, so, oh, thanks, Chili. I try. I try. Yeah, Jen, congrats on the fight. Yeah, I can't wait. November 21st, right? Man, it's killing me to wait this long. Like I said, I was, before I went live, I was talking about the X Pro 3 because they announced that yesterday. And there was two things that killed it for me on that camera because I was really excited because, like I said, I've said many times, there's a Fujifilm camera in my future. But man, that price was the deal breaker for me. I was not expecting $1,800 to $2,000 without a lens. And then um, no HDMI port, and I just do too much video to not have an HDMI port. So that's where I stand on the X Pro 3. Otherwise, I really love the camera. I mean, money no object. I would just buy it and love it to death. But at that price and my budget, I can't just buy cameras because I want it. What do I think about smartphone photography? I don't think they're taking over soon. Uh, yeah, I think eventually it'll get there. I mean, in the far future, we're at least, in my opinion, 5 years away from a smartphone being able to do a lot of what we can do now by with our interchangeable lens cameras. It's definitely taken over the compact camera market. There's nobody needs to carry those anymore. But for a full-on DSLR with all the controls we have, being especially for pro work, you need to set up light stands and flash units everywhere, and they're not going to put that kind of control on a cell phone because otherwise they have to start putting hot shoes because the photography industry, there's so much legacy there, right, in terms of gear and setups and how to do things that they'll never be able to do on a cell phone. Like I said, especially like multiple flash units and stuff for pros. For the average person, though, yeah, they might, and it already has really taken over photography, which I don't mind because that means people are still taking pictures. They're just doing it with their phone. Um, have I experienced jumps in video record on EM10 Mark II when playing it in the computer? Oh, yeah. On slower computers, yeah, it's a problem. Um, there's really no way around it. The only thing you can do is shoot in normal video mode. So if you're just doing like normal videos, use normal quality setting. Don't use the all eye or the very high bit rate, the super fines, because that makes the file sizes very large. So you're running into two problems really with high bit rate video. One is the file sizes are very large, so that whatever software you're using has to read almost the entire thing off the disk uh, to play it because it's not going to buffer too well because you only have so much memory in the computer and the buffer. And then the other problem is the video itself. Even though computers have been able to handle full HD for a long time, uh, throwing that in, throwing that in combination with the large file sizes causes some older computers to jump and struggle. I mean, honestly, my computer, and I have a 6-core Pentium with 32 gig of RAM and an SSD. I got like the best computer I could afford. And when I offload video from my and 1080p video, where is that thing? Because sometimes I record video on this, right? And the file sizes on this thing are massive, even in 1080p. And my computer struggles to even play 1080p video off of files that I get from here. So that's why I say when people are complaining, I try not to use words. When people are complaining about the video specs on Olympus, they never talk about the freaking file sizes that you're going to get with those video files and being able to play them or edit them or do anything with them once you get them off the camera. It's no joke. Hi Rob, is there a way to reproduce color profile 2 and 3 on the Pen F? No. There's no way to do that because the Pen F, it basically all it's doing is you're able to select individual colors and increase or decrease the saturation. The only way to duplicate it is really in Olympus Workspace. But the challenge is when you bring up an EM10 Mark II file in Olympus Workspace, the raw file, the color wheel is turned off, right? So I have a video on how to get around that. But long story short is you export your raw file as a TIFF file, and then you can edit that file with all the color wheel settings in Olympus Workspace. But doing it in camera is right now is impossible. And so watch that video. It's called Kodachrome Profile with Olympus Workspace, something like that. Just search all my Kodachrome 25 videos, and there'll be one on with where I use Olympus Workspace to actually apply those Kodachrome colors. But the same thing would apply to uh, the color profiles 1 and 2. Now, color profile 1 actually I don't think is any different than uh, regular natural, and color profile 2 is very similar to film. And then I can't remember color profile 3, but I don't use that one much, if at all. I've just popped up on the Facebook. What does that mean? I've popped up on the Facebook Olympus O&D owners group. Do they actually live stream this live stream? Or did they just post a link to my live stream or channel? I do post on Facebook time to time. I'll share one of my posts. I try not to post too many things in the Olympus groups uh, on there because, they're my YouTube videos, right? And most people are already pretty aware of me on YouTube. Maybe not. Maybe I should post more on Facebook. Uh, I feel bad. I'd like to participate more in Facebook and in the MU43 forums. Um, but man, this YouTube channel alone keeps me so busy on top of, everything else I do. It's hard to do it all. Okay, Jack says we seem to be where we were 20 years ago when most people use points and shoots and people into photography used SLRs. Today is the smartphones and DSLR. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, what's interesting is oh, thanks Sam to my Pen Mono. It's probably I posted that there, I think. Yeah, I posted that there yesterday. Uh if someone else reposted it again, that's great. And whenever I post a video on my Facebook page, if you guys want to share that in the groups, that would be a little more appropriate, I think, than me sharing it directly. Because it's a little bit too, what do they call it? Shameless self-promotion. I mean, I want to be helpful, so I thought that monochrome video was very helpful. And I posted some other videos that I thought were helpful, but a lot of the videos I don't post across different groups because I feel like it's just self-promotion. So if you find a video helpful, it'd be great if you guys shared it, right? On Facebook for me or on my behalf, because like I said, I don't feel like it's always appropriate for me to share a video every time I make one. Oh yeah, but Jack, I heard a what do you call it? Or I read an interview with a guy from Leica who was asked a similar question or something along those lines about where he thought the DSLR market was going because, or SL, mirrorless, because there was a lot of doom and gloom videos not long ago where people are saying that the camera industry is dying. But this guy from Leica was saying that in actual numbers, they're selling as many cameras as they were, 10 years ago, if not more. It may have been on F-Stoppers. I read that article. I'm not sure, but I thought that was interesting that when you take out the smartphones and you just look at the graph by itself, he was saying that they were selling just as many, if not more, as they were 10 years ago. That seems contradictory to the other charts that you see. I forget the name of that organization that keeps track of that. because you always see these dips, and every year it's a little bit lower than the previous year. Oh, thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. It's, Brian's asking, is the PenF discontinued? Do you think Ollie will ever create another PenF with EVF or a pen with an EVF? I like the small bodies. Yeah, I hope so. You know, that was such a bummer for me personally that they dropped the Pen F. Because I just, man, I'm going to admit something that I shouldn't admit that I take this camera with me and put it right next to me every night. Well, not every night, but next to me on my bed, on my little stand table, and just look at it, and it gives me inspiration to go out and continue shooting. This camera is constantly is around me or near me or somewhere I can see it so that um, it inspires me to go out and do more photography because it's very creative camera with all the functions and things, so that's partially it. And like I said in another video, you have to like your camera, otherwise you're not going to take good pictures or want to go take pictures. Because yeah, there's cameras that are technically better, and so many people, there was a lot of disappointment with the M5 Mark III. uh, and to me that's not the point, right? Cameras don't have to meet everything spec for spec, just like Fuji's X Pro 3. They were leading, a lot of the press leading up to that was like, Fuji doesn't follow spec for spec. They're not trying to keep up with Sony. They're trying to offer a different experience. And that's exactly what the Pen F is for me. It offers me a different photography experience because I love photography. And it's the reason I got rid of I didn't get rid of it. I still have it. I can't sell anything. So I don't know. If you still have all your gear from other systems, does that mean you switched or did not switch? I still have my Sony NEX in the bag over there that um, I like the camera because I'm a nerd. I'm very techie. I loved all of the features on it. And then I bought a Nikon. I think it was a D40 for for like $100. Because my friend shoots Nikon, and I fell in love with that DSLR experience with the viewfinder and everything because that felt like a camera to me, and it really increased my user experience or my enjoyment of photography. So I stopped shooting Sony and went to Nikon DSLR, which migrated to the 7100, which migrated when that broke to the D750. And then when I went and looked at the Olympus cameras, my thinking was I just want something small and light to carry around when I go biking and things. And it took over everything I do photography wise, both professionally and personally, and I never take that D750 out anymore. So um, I forget what question I was trying to answer with that. Oh yeah, about the EVF. So I hope so. I hope they do bring back another pen with an EVF because that's the EVF is a very important part of the user experience, at least for me, and it seems like for you as well. Oh, the half frame pen. Man, I've been shopping the half frame pens. There's someone on Instagram. I can't remember his name. I think I follow them. That was shooting a lot of half frame with their Pen F, the original film Pen F, and that was so cool. I went out one day and shot, in that vertical mode. I think it's a 3:4 aspect ratio on the camera. And then I was trying the scene modes and things, and I wasn't really very good at it, but I definitely want to shoot like that in half frame, uh, and then put the images side by side together, right? That was really cool. And I really like that Pen F, the original one from 50 years ago. If I can get one with that like Gothic F on there, I'm gonna do that. I just bought an EM5 Mark III, so I might have to wait a bit. It's I keep maxing my credit cards out. I just with the M5 had the vertical grip. I'm not sure, Al, what did you say you just ordered an EM5 Mark III? I'm not sure. It's kind of a fragmented sentence there. With the grip. If you could restate that for me. I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. Oh, what's wrong with my EM10 Mark II? Oh, a couple of things uh, that I know off the top of my head is the eyepiece stopped working, or not the eyepiece, but the auto switching. So when I put my eye up to the viewfinder, it doesn't switch anymore automatically back and forth. So I have to put the camera into manual switch between the screen and the EVF. That was one thing. The other thing is this battery door broke. This is the worst battery door design ever because it has these tiny little plastic pins that hold this metal plate. And this metal plate uh, is easy to break because every time you push on this tab to open and close the battery door, it puts pressure on that plate against these tiny three little pins. And so eventually it just broke. And I used super glue. I mean, it's, I don't know if that's going to show up or not. But I used super glue and glued everything back together. There's a post in my community tab where I had that all apart. But super glue just comes off after a while. I might have to actually get an epoxy. But yeah, I'm always worried that this is going to fall off again. And there was one other thing I was having a problem with that I can't remember. It's something very specific, which is kind of weird. You know, it's something internal to the camera. And it might have been one of the features stopped working that might have been tied to the EVF. I can't remember exactly. So otherwise, it takes great pictures. I mean, I vlogged with it the other day and put that video up, and it still works 99%, but it's just got those couple little things that are annoying. You know, the battery thing bothers me, and the EVF not auto switching bothers me. You sorry, meant to say I wish the EM53 had a vert. Oh yeah. And I asked the guy at the launch event, are they going to come out with a vertical grip with the extra batteries? And he said no. So that was a bummer because, you know, a lot of people use that EM5 Mark II professionally, right? Because it had the tethering and everything ability to it. And I don't know if the EM5 Mark III has tethering. It probably does, but that vertical grip is really adds a lot of functionality to the cameras, especially, you know, not just being able to shoot longer in a studio setting or out in the field, but also for video work where, you know, you can shoot longer in pro work. And the example I gave was, you know, I was recording a lecture and we have that 29-minute limit, which they should get rid of, but that's one thing you have to check for and interrupt the lecture and say, can you hold that thought, you know, while I restart the recording? And then if you have to go back and make sure the battery's still good, you know, that's very disruptive to the workflow. But having two batteries, you can get through, you know, a 1 or 2 hour, you can get through a 2-hour lecture on two batteries and you're fine. But with one battery, a 2-hour lecture, you have to check for the 29-minute time limit and you have to change the batteries, and that's a problem. So you bought the LSP4 recorder and I did not manage to connect it to the M5 Mark II. I mean to have the recorder sound directly on the video file. Oh, I think you have to plug, it says you managed to connect it. I haven't used that setup, but I think you still have to connect the audio cable from the recorder into uh, the line out into the camera's line in, the audio part, in addition to the USB. I think all the USB does is start and stop the recorder. so that it stays in sync with the video. So hopefully that answered your question. I think that's what the issue is that you might be having. That was for Remy. The B7000 is the best glue. Okay, I'll check. 8-bit Ed, awesome. You're not that 8-bit guy that has that channel, are you? I watch that channel time to time. I get nostalgic about all my old computer gear when I was a kid, or games or whatever. Yes, a half case. That's a good idea. I didn't think of that because I bought the grip for it, but the bottom of the plate is open, so it doesn't save the battery. But a half case would do it. That's true. I honestly, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to get that EM5 Mark III, and that's just going to go and be a shelf piece from now on. Except for maybe doing some tutorials, because a lot of people still buy this camera. I mean, I've seen this camera $499 with 2 lenses. The kit plus the 40 to 150 kit, and that's a smoking deal for everything that this camera can do. And honestly, in terms of photography, there's not a lot of difference all the way back from the Mark I cameras all the way up to the Mark IIIs. You can take just as good an image on a Mark I camera as you can a Mark III, in my opinion. So, Thorsten, you're a bit disappointed about the Mark III. It's really worth upgrade from the Mark II when I don't use video. Yeah, to answer that, I would say the short answer is no. To elaborate that on a little bit, if you need the autofocus for photography, the continuous autofocus tracking is much improved. So if you do a lot of continuous autofocus, it's definitely worth the upgrade in that sense. And I think there's because it also has the Pro Capture mode, which the M5 Mark II does not. So like I said, if you do a lot of moving stuff and fast action stuff, it's definitely worth the upgrade. But if you're just a landscape street photography guy, yeah, there's no reason to upgrade from a Mark II. I'm thinking if the Mark II, if I can get that down to about 300 or 400 bucks, the M5 Mark II, I might just get one. So I love that camera too. I'm just yeah, I got a bad case of gas. What can I say? Yeah, Sam, that Pen F, yeah, I know. I love that camera. I always, whenever I leave the house and I take a camera with me, if it's not the Pen F, I'm always a little bit sad. The only reason I don't take the Pen F is because when I go out is because I need the other camera's very specific ability or feature that the Pen F doesn't have. Um, Namely uh, well, actually, there's very little the Pen F can't do, but namely for the mic jacks on the M1 Mark II and my Pen PL8, because the Pen PL8, like I said in my last video stream, this has a mic jack option right here. You just buy this little adapter. So I take this a lot out along with my EM10 Mark II. But I should take the Pen F out more for some more tutorials on the color settings and creative things you can do, because it's really an amazing camera. Oh, thanks, John. You share those? I appreciate that. I may have seen that actually. Um, Because, yeah, time to time, I'll look around the forums to see if I'm getting any traction anywhere, right? And yeah, DP review, I see my name pop up, and definitely the MU43 forums. Like I said, I'd love to participate more. I should make an effort to do that. It just takes so long to get through all of the Instagram and comments and everything else on YouTube. The M10 is a great little camera. Yeah, it is. The M10 Mark II is really the best camera ever. Um, functionally, I have no reason to buy this camera, this Pen F. I bought it purely out of vanity. I just I love this. I love my little bling, my red button now, and all the creative things it can do are a lot of fun too. Yeah, the M5 definitely. Yeah, those are all of the Olympus cameras are awesome. Like I said, it's about that user experience with Olympus, at least for me. It really inspires me to go out. I just love how they look and everything and how they handle and the images they take are fine. I mean, I I I got a little flack on my full frame video when I said I'm leaving full frame from some people about how full it wasn't a fair comparison, and that's true. I mean, full frame micro four thirds is never going to keep up with a full frame in low light. So if you're shooting professionally, full frame camera for like weddings and things, makes sense, because you'll get more shots, more keepers with less noise and stuff. Uh, Al's asking if I do weddings. No, I don't do weddings. Not at all. That's too much stress. I can't imagine doing weddings. That girl over at Micro Four Nerds, she does weddings. She has some good videos. Um, I don't have any Panasonic cameras. Uh, I was asking, do I have any Panasonics? I do not. I was this close to buying a GH5S. This close. Um, but at that price point, anything over 1,000, I have to really want that camera, either professionally for something or there's something about it that I would have no problem buying a Leica M3 if I had the money. It's an old film camera, but it's beautiful. Um, but Panasonic, the problem I have is they're very utilitarian. They um, they just don't appeal to me cosmetically and don't inspire me to go out and shoot. So I know they have great features. I mean, the only Panasonic cameras that I would consider is that LX100 version 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. That camera does have a certain appeal to it. It's very compact and it has that built-in 24 to 70 zoom, and it's as capable as any camera in terms of photography and video. Uh, so I do shop that camera once in a while, but it's still like $800-900, and uh, you know, it just doesn't have enough. I for that kind of money, honestly, I'd rather get a Fujifilm, because what appeals to me about the Fujifilm are the film simulations. So that's that's why I don't have a Panasonic. It's purely out of just I just don't like how they look or feel or handle. But ironically, the when I was shopping cameras for the very first time, back in 2012, um, I was looking at a Panasonic GX1, I think, or G1. I think it's the GX1. It's like $100 now. I still might get one of those because that camera did appeal to me. So if I get a Panasonic, it'll probably be that one. I heard that Pro Capture will not work with non-pro lenses, nor will it work with Panasonic. Is that true? Voodoo's asking. Crap. My EM1 Mark II right now is doing the live stream, because I would just put a lens on it right now and try it for you. I don't know. I do know for a fact though that I did use the Pro Capture with my 75 millimeter f1.8 and 75 to 300 zoom lens, and those are not pro lenses. So I would say that that statement is false with those two lenses, the 75 1.8 and the 75 to 300 lens. Those are not pro lenses, and they worked fine with Pro Capture because I was doing some birding with it, and it worked fine. Um, but let me double check, because you know how your memory can play tricks on you, right? I'd have to double check that, so I'll make a note. So what I'll do is on my community tab, I'll make a post that to answer your question. Oops, sorry about that pop. Pro capture plus a kit lens, we'll say. So I'll check that for you, Voodoo. I'm 99% sure it's fine, but like I said, my memories might be playing tricks on me. Yeah, the noise is not that bad with the Micro Four Thirds. Like I said, it's not. But that's the thing is when you're doing shooting professionally, say like for a wedding, you're really pushing it with Micro Four Thirds. Um, it just you're probably better suited with a full frame because I have that D750 and the problem I have with people always saying full frame is better is because they're talking about that very on the very fringes of most photography, right? Like I underexposed this shot by 5 stops, but I'm able to recover it because I use this full frame camera. And it's like, well, stop underexposing your shots for God's sake, you know. Um, it just I yeah. So that's really the problem I have with a lot of full frame photographers, but or the full frame argument. And the other argument is, it's always better in low light, and I can't argue with that. It is. And if you're doing pro work or you're very critical about your images in low light, and it doesn't have to be particularly low light, it can be a very high dynamic range scene where you really have to try and pull in the highlights and shadows all the time, and you don't have that option to bracket your shots. Because for me, I would just bracket the shots with Micro Four Thirds and do an HDR or something. But if you don't have that option, I think someone like what's his name, Thomas Heaton, right? He does a lot of single shot uh, images for his landscape. He also does bracketing, but there's a lot of images I guarantee he wouldn't be able to get with a Micro Four Thirds if he was doing a single shot. And sometimes multi-shot, if you're bracketing, doesn't work either because then you start to get some motion blur or artifacts that you wouldn't get if you were able to capture it in a single frame. Yeah, the LX100. Do you have and the Leica version for dense? That's funny. um, yeah, the LX100. That's a pretty sweet little camera. But I'm gonna get a Fujifilm before I get that. But I probably will get an LX100 one day. Just for fun. I don't know. There's not enough days in a year as there are cameras that I want to try, to be honest. Yeah, you can burn the grain out if you overexpose. That's true. And yeah, overexposing destroys data. Um, it can. I mean, I think destroy is a little bit strong. It's more like it just doesn't capture the data to begin with. Because and that's what I meant. Like I have that video on tweaking your histogram. I think it's one of my earliest videos, and I was demonstrating how to get better exposures or whatever with the histogram. And in that video, I talked about exposure latitude. And I was saying that, most cameras, they don't have more than 6 or 7 stops of latitude anyway. Uh, so you have to expose your shots correctly and pick your battles, right? Do you want to keep the highlights or do you want to keep the shadows? And, I got some arguments about that. And they're legit, I mean, they did make a point that ultimately the dynamic ranges are better on full frame cameras or cameras with larger pixel. And that God, I lost my thought again. The give me a second. But yeah, exposure latitude really, let's say your camera has, because one of the questions I got was, DxO Mark says that the uh, dynamic range of this camera is 14 or 15 stops, and the dynamic range of, say, Micro Four Thirds is 12 stops. Where am I coming up with this 6 or 7 stops of exposure, right, or dynamic range? And I'm really referring to dynamic to the latitude. So the best way to explain that is if you have, let's say, a 14 stop camera, something that's capable of that, regardless of what DxO says. If you have a camera that can capture 14 stops, really on the ends, towards the ends of like from 0 to 14, on the very ends of that, you're not capturing a lot of data. And if you overexpose a shot, say you're trying to overexpose to the right, you only have about 6 or 7 stops on the right side, right, of that 14. Or if we divide 14 in half, you have 7 stops on one side, 7 stops on the other. And that's your exposure latitude. And the more you over or underexpose, expose to the right, expose to the left, you have to think about you really only have 6 or 7 stops of exposure latitude when you're exposing. And that's kind of where I was. I don't even know what question I was answering, but that's where I was going in that video. M43, yeah, definitely. You don't need full frame for real estate. I use my Micro Four Thirds in real estate photography professionally all the time. It replaced my D750 completely, and that's why I ended up buying. I first bought the 7-14 Panasonic, and I used that for a couple of years with my EM10 Mark II for real estate photography. This EM10 Mark II, up until the last couple of months after the battery door broke, was my workhorse in real estate, along with the 7-14 millimeter Panasonic lens. And I've since upgraded. Now I use my EM1 Mark II and my 8mm fisheye pro lens for real estate. And most jobs, that's the only lens and camera I need. I rarely need to break out anything else. That and a flash. I have my 80-200 flash. Olympus colors. Yeah, the Olympus colors are just the natural profile is very, very accurate. I can't say about Panasonic because I just never shot with any. But it's always subjective, right? Oh, um, I can hardly read that. My eyes are so bad. But Zedco is asking, I have all these cameras, right? Why do I use the M10 Mark II so much? Okay, that's a good question because mainly, what is this in the thing here? Mainly, it's because I'm focused on beginning photographers, and most beginning photographers, if they go with Olympus, they buy the EM10 Mark II. They don't drop, $2,000 on an EM1 Mark II or EM1X. Most of you have the EM10 Mark II, and that's really your first real camera. And fortunately, most of the settings on the EM10 Mark II also apply across the board, across all of their cameras. So that's why I shoot mostly or do mostly videos with the EM10 Mark II, is because I think that's the camera most beginners have. And 90% of the settings apply across the board, across all of the cameras. So even if you're very experienced or you have a one of the more expensive cameras, you can still use still follow the tutorials if you're a beginner. And I focus on beginner photographers because honestly, I don't feel like I'm particularly professional, right? I don't know everything there is to know. I know just a little bit more than some people, right? So I'm happy to share what I know. And what surprises me though is there's a lot of veteran photographers that watch my channel, which is very flattering, and they compliment me on my photography, which is something else. I mean, I think I'm an okay photographer and I know a few things and I share them online, and that's really all I'm trying to do. But that's why I use the M10 Mark II. Yeah, panny cameras. Yeah, I'm not a fan of their looks, and yeah, that's not a reason not to buy a camera, but it is for me. Yeah, the King is talking about the tax on video cameras. That if they record like 30 minutes or more, that they get taxed a little bit higher. I thought they eliminated that tax last year. That's why we're seeing more cameras without that record limit. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I live in the U.S., so they should just give us cameras like Panasonic that has no record limits because they have two models, right? The 80 and the 85, and one has a limit, one doesn't, but they get sold to different markets. So Hugh says he uses the A7 Mark III plus Olympic Panasonic. They all have their pros and cons. Yeah, definitely. I mean, every camera, there's no perfect camera, right? Uh, and that A7 Mark III is an awesome camera by all accounts. It's just not not in my bag. Not that because it's a bad camera, I don't like full frame. It just I just like my Olympus. I'm enrolled in photography class at the local college. Out of 25 people, I was the only one with a Micro Four Thirds. However, everyone wanted to check it out with lots of questions. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, I think that's I don't know what cameras did they have. Did they have mostly full frames or mostly APS-C? I mean, Micro Four Thirds doesn't seem to be very popular here in the US as much so as, other countries. Yeah, Jack, over and under exposure is over and underused, really. Correct, and the word correct exposure is also subjective, right? Because if you want a very dark scene with lots of empty space, mostly blacks, technically that's underexposed, but it's the correct exposure. Oh, thanks, King. I appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Remy. Yeah, I try. I try to share what I enjoy about the Olympus cameras with everyone because they're such awesome little cameras. They do everything, and more. Um, oh, 8-bit Ed switched from a D7000. Yeah, the M10 is I think as good as that D7000 one is, if not better, in every way. The D7100 though, that was a good camera. I broke that camera. I'm always dropping things. I can't believe, and that should be a testament to how good these Olympus cameras are. My God, you should see the dent on this. I don't know if this camera will pick it up, but there is a massive dent on the top of my Pen PL8, and then this door doesn't close right anymore. I've dropped this so many times, and it still works fine. Oh, thanks, Alan. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, who is yeah, I don't know. If I say I'm modest, I'm not being modest, right? But I try not to portray that I know everything, because I don't, and nobody does. And anybody that says they know everything, they don't, right? However that saying goes. Uh, so three M4. There was a photo walk, and there was three Micro Four Thirds, three Sonys, and the rest Canons and Nikons. Yeah, Canon and Nikon, they own the market pretty much here in the US. And they're great cameras. I mean, nothing bad to say about them. Yeah, Chile, I mean, yeah, 5D Mark IV, nice. Nice, nice. Yeah, for pro work, for pro work, cameras definitely become just tools, and you buy the one that does the job you need. And uh, for real estate, the real estate that I do, there might be other jobs that it may not be appropriate, but for the work that I do, uh, Micro Four Thirds is fine. But yeah, at that point, the camera is just a tool. If there was, and that's why I didn't buy the EM10 Mark III because it didn't have my sets in it, and I use those my sets in my pro work for my workflow, and it makes a huge difference. And the EM10 Mark III didn't have that, so I didn't buy it because uh, it just didn't fit my workflow. Um, but yeah, cameras really, I mean, I hear that cameras are just tools. And like I said in another video, it does bother me that that saying, it gets to me, right? It's not just a tool, really. These cameras inspire me to go out shooting, but, you know, for pro jobs, yeah, they're just tools. I have the EM1 Mark 1 and not the Mark 2. The price difference between the EM1 Mark 2 and the EM5 III. I will choose the EM1 Mark 2 and not the EM Mark 3. Yeah. If you have the Mark 1, EM1 Mark 1 now, I think the EM1 Mark 2 is the better choice. Um, for all the reasons that you're used to handling a camera that has a grip already, if nothing else. And I would bet that the M1 Mark 1, I'm sorry, the M1 Mark 2 is definitely going to be more durable long term because it's an all metal build. But it remains to be seen, right? Let's see, the size and weight is awesome. Yeah, they all had huge backpacks and yeah, man, I got a heck of a backpack, you know, like a 24-liter Tenba that I paid 250 bucks for. And I used to go hiking up this mountain with all my gear, my 150 to 600, my Nikon D750, you know, several other lenses plus the flashes. Um, yeah, that I was in much better shape then too. Uh, but yeah, it's if I had to do that now, wow. I honestly I went back to that same mountain hike uh, about 2 years ago with my Micro Four Thirds gear, and I couldn't do half of what I did, even when I had a full backpack with all that Nikon gear. So it's more of a testament to what bad shape I'm in now relative to what I was back then. Oh, the great Vanzina, you're back. How you doing? I'm just guessing here as a newbie to video, does Micro Four Thirds make smaller video files given the same? No, it's exactly the same. Um, Micro Four Thirds generates the same files as any other camera. Would it be difficult to get rid of a Pen F and replace the M5 Mark III for just photo shooting? Uh, okay, the main advantage of the M5 Mark III in photography is the low light capability in terms of focusing. The Pen F is really, I think, the weakest in autofocus of all the Olympus cameras I've owned. I don't know why that's the case. There's a very subtle difference between my Pen F and my EM10 Mark II, but my EM10 Mark II does a better job than my Pen F in terms of autofocus. You know, I don't have a way to measure that precisely, but my gut feeling is the Pen F hunts more. And forget about continuous autofocus tracking. Uh, it's not going to happen on a Pen F, but on the EM5 Mark III, the continuous autofocus tracking, the pro capture, the low light autofocus, and it's going to have better image stabilization. All of those things make it a viable upgrade to a Pen F in technical terms. My opinion, though, is that the Pen F really stands alone as a camera because of all the creative features in it. But if you're not using any of those creative things in the camera, uh, EM5 Mark III makes a lot of sense. In terms of just pure image quality, you put the two cameras on a tripod and take the same picture, you're not going to be able to tell a difference. But uh, in terms of focusing, yeah, the EM5 Mark III is huge, huge upgrade. Yeah, Sam's only been an Olympus shooter forever. Yeah, one of my first cameras was actually that Minolta Maxim 7000, I think. You know, first interchangeable lens camera. And then I bought shortly thereafter an OM2. And this was back in the late 80s, I think, or mid 80s. an OM2S I bought. And I got rid of them shortly thereafter, and then I rebought them again a couple of years ago because I just want to get back into shooting film, and it was kind of nostalgic for me. Oh, Alan, you got the 4 to 1. Yeah, it's an awesome lens. I take it everywhere. It's always in my bag. Bracket like hell. That's funny. Never heard that one. I've really only been doing photography seriously since about 2012, or that's when I started. Uh, After E510. Oh yeah, the M10 Mark II is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're happy with that. Yeah, the Pen F is holding its value over the M5 too. That doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's especially now that it's being discontinued. The fact that it's holding its value shows that it wasn't an unpopular camera. I think. I don't know. I don't know why Olympus is dumping it. You know, they should really like Volkswagen did with their Beetles, right? They'll probably come back out in a couple years with another version and say, "Look, we're back." Because I read an interview on DP Review with one of the Olympus talking heads. I forget which one it was. Um, they don't build cameras because they have to. They build cameras because they want to, right? Um, and they make cameras not because the market dictates what they need to make. And that's what the Pen F was. It was kind of one of those cameras that they didn't have to make it as nice and put as much work into it as they did, but they did. And hopefully they'll get that inspiration again. Oh, the Maxim 7000. Yeah, I went shooting with mine last month, but I need to get a prime lens for it, man. That 35 to 70 f4 on that Maxim 7000 was a little soft. And I can say that because I was comparing it against my Olympus OM2 images that where I was using my 24 and 50 millimeter primes. There was no comparison in sharpness, and that's hard to tell when you're using film, right? What lens is sharper than the other? But it was painfully obvious that 35 to 70 was not that sharp. Voodoo, do I find any image quality difference between Zuiko lenses and Pro lenses? I understand the low light capabilities, but the cost down. Yeah, there is a difference. I have several videos comparing like the kit lens versus the pro lenses or premium lenses. And the biggest difference is when it's wide open. You can shoot a pro lens at f1.8 or f2.8, whatever it is, and it's tack sharp, and they're weather sealed, right? So that's what you're kind of paying for is that wide open sharpness. Once you stop it down to f4, f5, they might be a little sharper, but not enough that I think would warrant the cost, of spending the money for a pro lens. So, like I said, if you don't need that low light capability, I don't see any reason to buy a pro lens or need the weather sealing. Um, and the sharpness, like I said, they are sharp wide open, but if you're not going to shoot wide open, then uh, just stay with the kit lenses or basic primes. Oh, so your Maxim 7000 is degraded. I noticed the rubber part has gotten all white and powdery looking, but it seems to be fine. I bought it on eBay for like $25 or something. So if you want to get another one, they're cheap enough. You can get one in pretty decent shape. The one I got was in really good shape for 25 bucks. The only problem with it was, like I said, the rubber pieces. And I think I put some armor all on it or something that made most of that white go away, but it came back. So compare the Panasonic 14 to 140 versus the Tamron versus the Ollie, all regular, not Pro series. I would, the question is, I don't have or have tried any of those other lenses, but I would just say as a rule of thumb, always get the Olympus version for your Olympus camera. It's going to be the most compatible, particularly with video, particularly with continuous autofocus. Um, I mean, there are people that use those other brands that have no problems at all in photography. So uh, your mileage might vary, but I personally, I stick to the Olympus brands because the image quality out of all of the Olympus glass I've ever used has been excellent anyway. So they have kind of a reputation that precedes them when I buy their lenses. And I have no doubt the other lenses are just as sharp or just as good, if not better, in terms of image quality. But I worry about that compatibility issue. Uh, it's as small as that chance might be there that there might be a problem. I just buy Olympus because I already know it's going to be a great lens. Yeah, it's a noisy camera. You're not going to be stealthy with it, a Minolta. Yeah, because I think they're motor driven, right? From the camera, they have a little screwdriver like the old Nikons did. If I tried astrophotography with the yes, I have. I actually did a vlog. I never published it, but I was trying to vlog when I was doing some astrophotography, and I used the EM10 Mark II, and I used the kit lens, and then I also used the 12 millimeter f2.0, and I got pretty decent results. I'm gonna wait for another clear night that I can actually do for astrophotography with Micro Four Thirds because the problem with astrophotography, man, is everything has to be. It's like the perfect storm. You have to go out when there's no moon out, and then it has to be clear and not raining or clouds, and then it has to be a time when I'm free that I can actually drive out to a place because I have to drive 2-3 hours to get to anywhere that you can even see stars because everything is so lit up around here with light pollution. It's virtually impossible for me to do astro here in my backyard. But if I go a couple hours away, I'll be fine. But I have to combine that with the other things, weather, moon, clouds, all those things. And it's getting cold, so I don't know. I might have to wait till spring. But, to answer the other question is, yeah, they're fine for astrophotography. I might bring my Nikon though just to compare, but I was able to get some decent shots. And there's a forum somewhere. I don't know. Go to MU43 forum and ask there about doing astrophotography with the Micro Four Thirds. I'm sure there's a lot of people there that do that. If I remember correctly, I think there was a whole thread dedicated to that. Uh, the Ricoh GR series. Oh, yeah, the Ricoh. No, I like it for a lot of reasons, but um, it's a little pricey for what it is, I think. I'd rather get the Fuji XF10 over the Ricoh, but the problem I have with both those cameras, and the same problem I have with like my TG5, since I have this TG5, the Ricoh GR and the Fuji XF10 just don't appeal to me as much for how much they cost. But the problem I have with those cameras, just like this camera, and I think the LX100, I think the screen tilts on that though, if I remember correctly. Uh, but the screen doesn't tilt on any of those cameras. And I took this camera out, I take it out time to time for street photography, and it's a pain in the butt for me to get down low with this camera and not have a tilting screen for my street photography. I just so that's why I am not considering those cameras. I'm not one of those street photographers that take pictures of people so much, where those cameras are fine because you're always behind the camera. But if you're shooting low, right, and need to point the camera up, I need to be able to tilt the screen. Um, And then the other problem is I vlog with this camera, and when I'm vlogging, everybody can see my face, right? When I'm vlogging, and I'm walking down the street like this, talking and vlogging, and everybody coming in this direction can see me in the. I mean, it's stupid, right? They can see my face here. What's the big deal if they see it here too? But I feel really weird doing it that way. It's all in my head, I know, but yeah. So that's all. Yeah, me too, Thanasis. Like I said, the Pen F in particular, I'm always kind of just hanging out with me and the Pen F and my dog. Okay, I do use the 25, 35 to 100. Yeah, the 35 to 100, I was thinking that would be a great lens for taking to the dog park. It's like the perfect focal length, right? For that because the dogs are kind of far away, but then coming toward you very quickly sometimes. And I'd be able to zoom in and out and capture that. Um, I almost bought that lens just for that one thing. Oh, hey Mark, welcome. Don't worry, you didn't miss the first 30 minutes because I forgot to push go live and I was talking to myself for almost a half an hour. And so many people left, I assume. Um, so just a note, if you come to my live stream when I say there's going to be a live stream and it's not showing anything, please chime in the comment section and say, Rob, you're not live. Because people are asking questions, but nobody was saying, Rob, we can't see or hear you. And the only clue I got was when somebody said somebody liked the video and it's not even started yet. And I'm like, what do you mean it hasn't started yet? So I've been talking and answering your questions for 30 minutes. Let's see. Rico's are, yeah, they're kind of ugly. I mean, they're designed that way, right? Just like I did to my TG5. I taped everything off to make it as discreet as possible, and that was their intent there. So it's more of a tool, street photography tool, than it is a camera to inspire you, right? Uh, the GX80 12 to 32 also makes, yeah. I mean, really, you can vlog with any camera. Um, that 12 to 32 is pretty attractive. I like the wide angle 12 millimeter part better than I like the 14 millimeter on the Olympus lens. But they just, the autofocus is not great on those for video. I rarely use my phone. I only used it one time to go actually take pictures. And that's because I didn't have my camera with me and I had about, an hour to kill by myself. Because traffic was so bad that day. Oh God, my sister was driving. I said, just let me out of the car. I have to be back here in an hour and we're not going to make, and I live like only 7 miles from there, but I said, just let me out of the car now. I'm not going to make it home and back in an hour. And so I had no camera and I walked around with my cell phone, but I don't like that user experience is one of the most important things for me, and that totally lacking with a cell phone. Not that you can't get great pictures with a cell phone, right? But yeah, M43 for real estate is fine. That's what I use professionally. Like I said, for the first 3 years, I used the M10 Mark II with the 7 to 14 Panasonic in real estate, and never had a complaint. But it's the kind of real estate I do, right? Some houses, some commercial work. I don't know about more high end stuff. A good person to talk to about that, actually, he does a bigger variety of stuff, is Darren Miles. He has a YouTube channel, and he was using Micro Four Thirds for a long time, but he switched over to uh, I think a Sony A7 Mark III, or maybe the A7R2. But he switched over to a Sony full frame because he felt that fit his workflow, or was able to do more than he could do with his Micro Four Thirds. So you can check his channel out. He might be able to speak to that a lot better than I can. But for what I do, Micro Four Thirds is more than good enough because all of the images are compressed down to 2 megapixels, like 1980 by 1020 or whatever that number is, and put up on the web. So yeah, that's why I don't buy any pro lenses. I bought the 112 to 40 Pro for a very specific job, and I really don't use it much for photography. I use it for video time to time, like when I'm doing my tutorials and stuff. But even then, I try to use a prime when I can. Yeah, Jan, sorry. Yeah, you didn't miss anything the first half hour, trust me. Uh, so really, this video, oh man, it's 5:40. It's been going on a while. You want me to rate the XT3 versus the Z6 versus the Sony A7 III? Well, um, I think as if you look at them as just tools, I'm leaning towards the Sony A7 III, mainly because it has a bigger lens lineup and it's established itself in terms of features and performance. Um, the Z6 is a fine camera, but there's just not enough lenses for it for pro work, right? I mean, they might have some of the focal lengths covered, but it's not enough. And they're pricey, super pricey, more so than Sony, I think. And so yeah, I would say as if you look at the cameras as just tools, the Sony A7 III is your best bet. If you look at the cameras from an inspirational, cosmetic vanity point, the XT3 is that was the camera I would buy of those three cameras, uh, and I would have no problem using it professionally because they have a pretty good lens lineup now. So if I could only have one camera of those three, I would get the Fuji X-T3. It would perform and do everything any of those other cameras would do. Um, and I think it's a beautiful camera, and it's fun to use on the side, right, with the film simulations and all of the firmware updates that they do, so they keep the camera as current as they can. So yeah, that's my opinion. Technically speaking, I don't think there's enough difference between them, but the Sony would probably be your best bet as a tool, and the X-T3 would be the camera I would buy um, with no regrets. The Sony A7 III only I picked that a little bit more is because it has the IBIS in it and the lens selection over the Nikon. Oh yeah, I make a living from it, Jan. You know, whatever that means, right? I mean, I make money from it. It's all I do is I do photography and I do this YouTube channel. Those are my only two sources of income, and I do a little bit of um, coding as well, like uh, for websites. Those jobs are very far and few between. But I have two clients that need very specific website coding because I originally developed their sites. Well, one of them I originally developed a site from scratch. I built up an entire back end, and so anyway. But yeah, photography and this channel are my two primary sources. Oh, Al has a feel for what Darren Miles does. Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I love Darren Miles. I just haven't kept up with his channel lately. Um, but yeah, he's using all those cameras as tools. He's not looking at them in any other way. They're strictly tools. And like I said, for pro work, that's all a camera is. Oh, hi, Ken. Yeah, like I was telling other people that joined in late, um, you didn't miss anything the first half hour because I forgot to hit the go live and I was just talking to myself again. I can't believe such an amateur move or rookie mistake, you know? I'm a rookie at live streaming. What can I say? Oh, so 57 Plato's saying that he shot a dancer. And the question is, the ISO drop. Yeah, that's normal. That's normal because now the flash is providing the light and the camera's accounting for that. If you're using TTL with the flash, if you're not in TTL mode with the flash, the ISO shouldn't drop. But if you're shooting with flash and TTL mode, yeah, it's gonna use the lowest ISO it can with the shutter and aperture combination and the flash power output of the flash itself. How about the Fuji X-E3? It attracts me a lot. Yeah, it looks great. They have one at the local camera store used for like 7.99 with the 18 to 55 lens, which is a pretty good deal. It's a couple $100 cheaper than brand new. And I haven't picked it up yet because it doesn't have an articulating screen. It doesn't tilt. If it tilted, I probably would have got it. And there's no image stabilization built in either. And that's not as critical really in photography, but it's mainly the lack of the tilting screen that kept me from buying that camera. I'd rather have an EM10 Mark II than a Fuji X-E3 for photography. Tusker's saying he wants to move away from the Canon 550D to an M43, and the ones that are on my short list are the 10-2 and the GX. One of the major reasons I am looking at Ollie is because of your channel. Oh, thanks. Yeah, you can't go wrong with either one. The GX8580 is going to have better video capability. From what I understand, I mean, I've never used that camera, but being a Panasonic, I know the video is definitely going to be better. So if that's a priority, I'd get the Panasonic. Uh, as far as getting the EM10 Mark II, yeah, the fact that I have my channel and then Peter Forsgaard and Robin Wong, there's some really hardcore dedicated Olympus channels that provide really good information and tutorials on the Olympus cameras. There may be some for Panasonic, but I have no idea because I've never looked for them. But the fact that you have this kind of support from all of us to help you with your Olympus camera, I think should be a major uh, uh, point in your decision making, right? Because oftentimes it doesn't matter what the gear is. Are you going to get any support, right? Um, and you're definitely going to get that with all of the channels. So even if one of us, you know, goes away for one reason or another, and I'm not saying anyone is, but Red 35 is another one. And there's so many channels. I think, oh, for Panasonic, there's that guy Sultan blog or something. He's one of Peter's friends. He does some good Panasonic videos, I think. But yeah, for the most part, that I would get the M10 Mark II, knowing that you have that kind of support, unless you plan on doing video. Yeah, I've been hitting my channel pretty hard. Yeah, it is such a relief to just have this as my profession. You know, I went from actually I was like did some counseling and business consultant. That's kind of a strong word to use for what I did. I think secretary is a better word, but yeah, I had like a regular day job not too long ago, and I quit and said I just don't want to do it anymore. So I do photography now in this channel. So that's why you've been seeing more on my channel lately. I've just had more time. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Benzini. Yeah, the film sims, I definitely want to try that. He has an XE3. He's telling me about the film simulations. They're nice. Or they look nice. I'll have to find out one day. Yeah, full HD on the M10 is fine. EM10 Mark II, not the Mark One. The EM10 Mark II has great video in full HD. It's fine. It's just the autofocus is a little bit weak. You can watch my vlog. I did a night vlog with the kit lens with the M10 Mark II, and it was fine. Hi, John from Norway. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. Pedagogic. I have to look that word up. I have no idea what pedagogic means. Yeah, there's lots of good support. And EM102 silent shutter. Can you turn on beeping sound? No, I don't know how to turn the beeping on if you're in silent shutter mode. IBIS is not that critical unless you've used it. I am like you wanting to try Fuji and its film simulation, but the lack of IBIS kills me. Yeah, I know the IBIS thing. That's why I looked at the XH1 shortly because of the it has IBIS in it. But man, I'm not buying that big camera. Oh, E6 vlogs, yeah. I mean, I put E6 vlogs in the category of general photography, like Thomas Heaton, where the gear's not that important. I mean, I know he uses micro four thirds, like Olympus in particular, but he's more of a photography channel, and he's really good at sharing what he knows there, and how he composes shots, and he has a whole thing going on. He doesn't put out a lot of videos, but I really enjoy his channel when he does. Yeah, so Tusker, you haven't found too many Panasonic channels, huh? Yeah, that's too bad. Um, I'm sure they're there, but who knows? Maybe not. If I get a Panasonic, I'll support those. When I get my Fuji, like I said, one day I'm going to get one. I mean, I was going to go out today and shop for one, but then I said, oh, I got to do a live stream first. Now the camera shop is closed. So save my money another day. My credit cards are so maxed out though. Let's see. There's the XH1, but maybe, yeah, it's too big and bulky. Yeah, I'd have to skip that. Oh, hold on. Oh, sorry. One of the websites I was just working on, I made a mistake. Okay, I saw a response to Camera Conspiracy's trial. That was a nice feedback. He's so fun. I believe he could have liked it, but admitting a perfect camera means the yeah. Yeah, I know. And he said as much, right? That, if he finds the perfect camera, he doesn't know what he's going to do. Yeah, I agree with Craig Roberts. He's awesome. Gavin Hoey. Oh yeah, Gavin Hoey. Uh he used to do a lot of Olympus videos. I check him out time to time. But they're very short, right? I mean, what did he do? Like a 30-second video on live composite. I mean, maybe not 30 seconds, but it felt like it. Oh my God, how is anybody supposed to really? I mean, I get it. If you're already familiar with Olympus and the menus and stuff, maybe that you could get by with something like that. But that's why I got, like my live composite video is, I don't know, like, 20 minutes, right? But yeah, Gavin is awesome. He has some other videos where he takes his time to explain things and on general photography, and those are awesome. I used to love his little 10-minute challenges where he'd like go to the beach for 10 minutes and take 10 pictures or something. I would I would like to try that once, but I don't know how many. It takes me 10 minutes just to take one picture sometimes. Yeah, sorry, John. I don't even know what that means. Pedagogy. I don't know what that means either. I'll look it up later. Oh, out of battery. Give me 1 second. I'm working on it. Ha. Look at that. I can swap batteries live. Can you guys still see me? Anyway, I hope you guys can still see me. There. I assume you can see me. Somebody chime in, let me know I'm still alive. I should probably wrap it up though. That battery was in the EM10 Mark or EM1 Mark II. This battery. So what did I do? I've been live streaming for 2 hours and 10 minutes straight, plus the two videos I did this morning are also on this battery. So this battery lasted probably close to 3 hours with video, and that's one of the big advantages of this EM10 Mark or EM1 Mark II over the EM5 Mark III is the battery life is just unbelievable. So like I said, 2 hours and 10 minutes on live stream, plus probably another hour from this morning's videos that I did and photos. Just amazing. Yeah, it's really nice, right? The battery's amazing. Oh, hey Chris, I'm not sure what you're asking me. I should do what every week? Do a live stream every week? Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm gonna do another live stream probably Sunday morning, my time. Oh, hi Tony. Yeah. uh, 'Cause Sunday morning seems to work for a lot of people more east of me. Um, or is it further west? No, more east of me. So I think those will be my two time slots that I'm going to work on is like Thursdays at 3:45 and then uh, Sunday mornings like at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Pedagogical. Okay, now I'm curious what the heck that means. I don't have the widest pedagogical. Relating to teaching. Yeah, I guess that's true. I always try to teach when I talk about something, if I know something. um, what's the? Oh, this is an Olympus original battery. Um, someone's asked me what battery did I use. This is an Olympus original, and I've been using. I only bought two batteries for this, or one battery. I have the one that came with the camera, and I have this one, and they're both Olympus original batteries. The In all my other cameras, I use pretty much just the Chinese ones. Or I shouldn't say Chinese, but the generic batteries, and they don't last as long, anywhere near as long as an original battery. But they're cheap and easy to carry a couple of those around. So um, the only thing with these generic batteries is you have to be very careful after, usually within the year, they start to swell up a little bit. And you got to chuck them right away. If you start to notice any swelling, one is, obviously there's a hazard there, right, of it leaking or and damaging your camera or exploding. And then the other problem is they can get stuck in your camera. So, and I speak from experience, man. I had a hard time getting a battery out once because I was stupid and jammed it in there. It wasn't hard to get in, but it was a little tight. But then while it was in the camera, it swelled up a little more, and then it was almost impossible to get out. So yeah, if you see a battery starting, they're so cheap, just buy more, or buy original batteries. If you don't want to risk any chance of problems. Update on the 150 or no, I have no idea. I haven't been following those lenses at all. Mainly because I don't plan on ever buying a $10,000 lens. um, Sorry, I can't give any feedback to that. Discipline that deals with theory and practice. Yeah, thank you. Give me the definition there. Yep. Uh, oh, thanks, Brian. Yeah, you'll have to look out for me, I guess, Louise. I don't I don't really follow. I'll see the announcement time to time, like, Olympus is coming out with this lens, and I'm like, well, okay, good luck with that. I'm not buying it. Uh, they should send more gear to YouTubers and reviewers and people to just try it out, their cameras and lenses. Yeah, this goes back to uh, when the EM1X came out, and Frono's Photo got a copy of it, and he was supposed to do a full-on review of it, but he never did. He just did that preview, and I bet Olympus said, just give the camera back. You're going to trash it, uh, and not in a nice way. There's being critical of a camera or equipment, and then there's just being kind of not so nice, right? Is the only way I can put it. And there's no reason to. Uh, and honestly, I was looking forward to his real world review of that camera, because and I've said this before, that's exactly the kind of photographer that uh, needs to be converted if they're going to convert anybody. I don't see EM1X converting anybody ever, and not because it's not a great camera, but um, the average professional photographer out there is going to need a full frame, low light capable, fast freaking camera. And, the M1X at is just, you just can't shoot at high ISO and deliver an image like that. Um, and I only speak from what I hear. I don't know for a fact that if somebody submitted a image from the EM1X, whether it would get accepted or rejected, but I can kind of see the perceived uh, notion of, you need a full frame, you need clean images all the time. I mean, he was the other reason he didn't like that camera was, it didn't give the kind of the bokeh that he wanted at the focal lengths that he was shooting at. Now that I strongly disagree with. I don't think that really matters, but I don't do that kind of photography professionally, so it's not my place to say whether that's matters or not. It wouldn't matter to me, but it's not my genre. And he's done that kind of photography, both like um, in his YouTubes where he goes out all the time. I mean, I don't know if he's done sports photography professionally, but he's definitely done like those concerts type things. And for him, 4/3 is not a good fit, but he still should have done the review. And yeah, Olympus should. I think they do send out to a lot of people. Like if you just search YouTube, you'll see a lot of channels have cameras to try out. But what really annoys me is, you know, and I understand why Olympus did this, is they sent a camera for free. It was an EM5 Mark II recently to this YouTuber. She does mostly just like a day in my life type vlogs and makeup and just, you know, not even photography related. And they sent her a camera for free to try and and review. And I get it because she's in a different market segment, right, than most camera buyers. Normally, those kinds of channels, they send, that do these, makeup and lifestyle type channels, they send those girls the Pen PL9, right, uh, to review. And they get like 100,000 views on a Pen PL9 when, somebody like me and Peter or whoever does Olympus reviews, we're lucky to get 1,000 hits on our channel when we review a camera. But you know, I don't get it. Yeah, Olympus is definitely, the marketing is definitely missing something, some magic there. They I feel like they really need to target photographers that are into photography, much like Fuji does, where they focus on film simulations and the aesthetics of the camera. I mean, Olympus does all of that, right? They have the art filters, they have the creative dial and the pen app. They do all of that, but they don't market it that way, in my opinion. They try to market it like next to, you know, people that are trying to switch from full frame to micro four thirds, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Or they're marketing it to these lifestyle vloggers, and those people are not really big time camera buyers. They're going to use their iPhone, right? So they, you know, but I'm not a marketing guy, so but that's just my take on it. Um, yeah, Ashwan, I don't know what that lens is going to cost, but it ain't going to be, you know, cheap, right? I don't know. If I just threw $10,000 out there, it might as well be $1 million lens. I'm just not going to buy it. Let's see. Use a mix of both original and generic batteries in my collection of different brands. Yeah, yeah. Keep an eye on the swelling though, Tony. That's that what causes the battery to swell is heat, right? So in-camera charging, don't do it. If it's you know, like on the EM5 Mark III, if you get that, don't do in-camera charging uh, on any camera. And then charging the batteries too fast, so you always use a slow charger if you can. And you know, those batteries, the problem is, you know, the generic batteries, right? There's like 3 or 4 pins here on all the batteries. And one of these pins tells the camera and or the charger if it's overheating, and it slows the charge down so the temperature comes back down to an acceptable level. The generic batteries, they have 3 pins here, but one of the pins is a dummy pin. It's just there with some dummy circuitry to tell the camera that the battery's not overheating. It's just fine. And you know, when you're shooting rapid fire or you're charging rapidly, uh, batteries get hot, you know, and they swell. And that pin is dead on generic batteries. So uh, that's one of the reasons they swell is there's no way for the charger to know that the battery's overheating. Now the chargers claim they have their own overheating detection, right? Without using that third pin. But that's you know that's like checking for ambient temperature. It's not getting the temperature reading directly from the battery like an original battery. So that's part of the reason they swell up, or that's part of the problem. Uh, you suggest, yeah, Micro Four Thirds is not a low light beast, right? I mean, that's just the hard truth. I mean, they're good enough. I do night photography all the time. Um, and really, the only time you have problems is when you want to recover shadows. You know, my argument is just expose properly to begin with and you'll be fine, right? But, uh, you know, there's times when, you know, like I said, that's the dumbest example, but it's legitimate, is when people underexpose their shots by 5 stops and then pull up the shadows in post processing, and it can still be almost noise free. Whereas that's not going to happen on a Micro Four Thirds camera. If you try and pull up shadows, oh my God, let me show you my workspace if I can. I'll show you an image in low light with Micro Four Thirds that looks great because I got the exposure I wanted. I wanted a lot of blacks and rich blacks and things. Um, let's see. Yeah, I'll pull this up for you. Please, just move my head away. Okay, there we go. All right, so let me grab. This was from my photo walk. What camera was this? This was the EM1 Mark II. All right, so this is their best low light camera by at least a half a stop, if not a full stop better than their EM10 Mark II. But like, here's an image I kind of liked, right? And this is the raw image I'm looking at. Let's see, where is it here? If I try and pull up the, if I pull up the exposure 2 stops, you know, you can see all of the noise in this shot, right? On a full frame camera, like my Nikon D750, I don't know if I have an image there. I don't have any night shots from D750 handy. Let me show you another image, like this one. Like, look at this image, right? There's a lot of black space, and let me grab the raw. If I pull this up 2 stops, I mean, you can see, let me punch in for you. You can see all of the noise. It's not done yet rendering, but you can see all of the noise in this image. And with a full frame camera, you're just not going to get that. Or as much, I should say. And that's where all the full frame people come in and say, see, look what I can do. But I'm like, for photography I do, I'm like, so what? You know, I didn't want that overexposed or underexposed by 2 or 3 stops anyway. And these guys are pulling things, you know, 5 stops out of their cameras, and there's no hope of doing that on a Micro Four Thirds. And that's all I meant. But for 99% of what I do, it doesn't matter. I don't expose images, underexpose them by 5 stops. Fro is just a Micro Four Thirds. Yeah, he doesn't like Micro Four Thirds. Same thing with Thorius, or the angry photographer, you know, Ken Wheeler over there. He did a video, my God, he did a video on why I switched or something like that, and all he did was berate people that did videos of why they switched from full frame to Micro Four Thirds. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I just did a video on why I don't miss full frame and why I switched and all that. And then I'm thinking, man, did he see my video and then decide to make that? I doubt it, but I respect his opinion on lenses. I bought a lot of Nikon lenses based on his reviews. But yeah, he's a character, and now I can't remember where I was going with that. But anyway, someone's already done. John Gringo did a preview of the 150 to 400 prototype. Oh, okay, in one of his classes. Let's see, Fro. Yeah, oh, that's why I talked about Fro. Yeah, they're not big on Micro Four Thirds, but that's okay. Just leaves more viewers for me, right? I can see them sending an EPL model because they're trying to attract. Yeah, they send the EPL models, but this girl got an EM5 Mark II, man. I'm like, God, send me an EM5 Mark II. I'll review the hell out of it. Trust me. And probably people actually buy the camera if I talk about it versus, you know, those millennials, you know, they're going to take pictures with their iPhone. That girl's review of that camera, it's not fair for me to say that she did a bad review because she did a review for her viewers. But there's no way I would buy a camera based on what she said. But maybe her viewers would based on what she said because she's appealing to a different audience. That's all I can say. Yeah. You know, I used to actually be a really good, what do you call it, street vendors? I used to do trade shows. and I would sell that. I don't want to talk about that business, but man, I used to be really good face to face with people, and I would get every last dollar they had. I'm not going to be modest about that. I was a good salesman, let me tell you. Uh, so when I went to the launch event, the Olympus guy was there, and he said maybe I could go do launch events with him. You know, uh, I would love to do that, man, because I think, and I would not force a camera on somebody, right? But once I show them how great these cameras are, and I think my enthusiasm will carry over in that, they'll buy. I would sell a heck of a lot more cameras, I think, than any reps they have now. Um, but yeah, see, the salesman's coming out of me now, right? I'm not being modest at all, right? um, you worry the shareholders will kill off the image. That's a tough call. I mean, corporations, they run by the quarter, and it's amazing that that the imaging division has lasted this long if they were strictly about making money on their cameras. Because the way corporations work, like I said, they do have to respond to their shareholders or answer to their shareholders. It's a better word. And what do they say when they say, yeah, we've been losing every year for the last several years? What is their response? I'm curious. I'm not a shareholder for Olympus. I should become one, right? Just go to that website where you can buy one share, and then I'll start getting the reports from, I guess they're publicly published anyway. I just never had any desire to read them. It's so dry. But I am curious what the shareholders really, if they have a voice, what they would say. The 75 to 300, it's a great lens. I mean, it's not as sharp as some people would like, but I found it good enough if you're close enough to the subject. Meaning you can fill the frame with a little tiny bird with that lens. If you can fill the frame, it's perfect. If the bird is only filling up literally a tiny bit of the frame and then you try and blow it up, yeah, the lens is soft in that respect. But and on the EM1 Mark II, it's an awesome lens. I have a video on birds in flight using that lens on the EM10 Mark II, and the images are fine. I mean, it just depends, for the money. Yeah, it's a great lens. Wide open at 75 millimeters, that lens is tack sharp as any lens I have. It's just when you start to zoom past 200 millimeters, it starts to get a little bit soft, and some people are a little disappointed there. So that's why you have to kind of fill the frame to kind of compensate for that. And then shoot it at f8. If you shoot it wide open, it's even softer. And that's the other challenge, right? If you're shooting at f8 at 300 millimeters, man, you have to have really good light. Yeah, I haven't heard of any teleconverters for the 75 to 300. There are for the 40 to 150 Pro lens there is, but not for the 75. Oh, hi Terry. Well, welcome. First time here. I'm actually about to wrap it up because I'm getting a little tired. Uh, but yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And for really long streams like this, what I do is I go back and I edit them and just post a highlights video that's like maybe 20, 25 minutes long instead of 2 hours. So anybody watching, or missed the first half, you can watch just a highlights video. Do you find that oh, thanks Ken, I appreciate that. Let's see. He said he wrote a letter to Olympus about me. I hear they talk about me time to time, from people that it seems like legit, right? They say some Olympus employee was once asked to ask the question. They said, "Oh, go watch one of Rob's videos. He'll tell you how to do that." Oh, good. Welcome to Micro Four Thirds. It's a great system. It's as good as any camera, really. Yeah, most zooms, most lenses, not just zooms, you have to step down to get a sharp image. So the question is, do you find that most zooms You have to step down. Yeah, most lenses you have to step down. Not the pro lenses. They're really good wide open, but just about any other lens, 90% of them. If I had to travel somewhere for a week with a Pen F, I would take a Pen F. No, hands down, it's my favorite camera. One Ollie stock is $13. Yeah, I might get one. Just put it up on my board, so I'm a shareholder. All right, Chili, you're welcome. See you, Tusker. Oh, thanks, Chili. Oh, first time here, huh, Blind? Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining in. Had a little rough start, but because I kept wondering why is nobody watching, and it's because I didn't even start the live stream. Yeah, I would definitely buy a Pen F again today. Definitely. If I didn't have one, I would buy it. Like I said, it's I would say it's about 90% cosmetic is why I would buy this camera. I just love how it looks. But then when I found out or started using all the creative features in it, all the more reason I'm always going to have a Pen F. If this one ever breaks down, I'm going to buy another one. Always, always. And it has its faults, but it's all the things that I love about it. Oh, someone mentioned to check you out. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, Terry. Yeah, welcome. I'm glad you could make it. I'm sorry I'm ending soon. But yeah, check out my videos. A lot of them are very dry and slow. Uh, especially the early ones. I never smile. And the live streams, I'm a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Gregarious. I'm much more gregarious in person, right? Or at least in a live stream than I am on my videos. Oh, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, I get that a lot. People Olympus should be paying me, but at least they know I exist now. I for a long time I didn't even think they knew I existed. Yeah, Mark, the Pen F is awesome. If you can get a really good deal on it, uh, definitely get one. Like 800 bucks or less. I think it's worth it. And especially if you're going to use the monotone and color profiles, you'll definitely enjoy it. The little creative wheel on the back here, where you can toggle through adding vignette or adjusting grain or adjusting the color filter intensity on the black and whites. It's really an awesome camera. You don't have to do anything in post processing with this camera. Oh, thanks, Tony. Thanks. Oh, only the black one, huh? Yeah, I didn't like the black one at all. I like the DSLRs or SLR style in black, but I don't like this in black. Just wait for it. If you don't need it, right? If it's just a toy purchase for you, just wait till you get the best deal and the camera you want. If there's no rush, why not? Yeah, the M5 Mark III is the same as the M1 Mark II. Exactly the same. Maybe better. I don't know, but I know it's at least as good. Um, all right, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Yeah, toy purchase, Mark. I would just wait for the deal you want at the price you want. The camera you want at the price you want, and then buy it. I'm thinking 800 bucks or less in silver. Uh, just keep checking the Olympus website for the refurbished ones. They usually have good deals on those. Oh, your wife won't see it that way. That's why I'm single. I uh, I don't have to answer to anybody when I max out my credit cards. I only like the white bot. Yeah, me too. On the Pen F, definitely I only like the silver. I mean, I guess if you want to be more discreet and do street photography, which is how that camera was marketed, the black makes more sense. Uh, But yeah, I'd rather, if I want to be discreet, I'd rather take out like my TG5, the way I've taped off kind of everything black. So now it's like the Ricoh GR, or even like my EM10. You know, I kind of blacked out as much as I can on the front just to make it as discreet as possible. It's not like people can't see you with a camera in your hands, but it's not like, you know, walking around with this thing that just, it draws people's eyes instantly to, wow, what are you doing with that camera, right? And I always say, you know, I probably get the stink eye even if I didn't have a camera in my hand. I don't know what it is, but people, I don't know, people tell me sometimes I look suspicious when I'm out. I don't know why. But okay, guys, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm starting to get kind of cotton mouth because I've been talking. I really appreciate everybody that came in today. There was a great discussion. And again, I'm sorry about that first half hour not even being online. It looks like I'm late for my appointments or something, right? But normally I'm very punctual, so I'll try and get it right this time. My next live stream will be Sunday morning, so just check Instagram and Twitter and my community tab, because that's where I'm going to post the actual time and date that I'll be doing my next live stream. Yeah, that $14.99 is a good deal, I think. Definitely. I just don't like power zooms like that or super zooms. They're always a little bit soft, even though they're great when you're up close to objects and things. But when you're zooming in at objects further away, you can start to see the difference between like a 10x zoom and a prime lens very clearly at that point. So, okay, everyone, thanks again. We'll see you again maybe Sunday morning, okay? Take care.